We all want to live a long life. That's a given. But what about a long, healthy life? In this explainer, we're going to dive into the science-backed choices that don't just add more years to your life, they add more life to your years. This quote actually comes from an emergency room doctor, someone who sees these two completely different realities play out every single day. I mean, think about that. On one hand, you've got vibrant, active people in their 90s, and on the other, you've got people decades younger who are already struggling, limited by diseases that are often preventable. It's a pretty shocking contrast. So that leads to the big question, right? Is it just luck? The luck of the genetic draw? Or can we actually influence which path we end up on? Well, the research is crystal clear. We have way more control than most of us think. To really get a handle on this, we're going to count down the 5 key pillars of longevity. And we're starting with the absolute foundation. Pillar number 5, something that often starts to break down decades, literally decades, before we ever notice a single symptom: our metabolic health. The best way to think about this is to picture your metabolism as your body's engine. When that engine is tuned up and running smoothly, everything works efficiently. But when it starts to malfunction, well, it causes system-wide damage, and it actually speeds up the entire aging process. And the stakes here are incredibly high. Get this, a landmark study found that having insulin resistance in your 40s and 50s can literally double your risk of dying early. To put that in perspective, that's the same increased risk you get from smoking. That's huge. So how does this even happen? Well, basically, your cells start ignoring the insulin keys that are trying to let sugar in for energy. It's like the locks on your cells get rusty. In response, your pancreas just goes into overdrive, flooding your body with more and more insulin. And this whole process quietly causes inflammation and fat storage for years, sometimes decades, before a single blood test ever shows a problem. Okay, let's move on to our next pillar, number 4. If your metabolic health is the engine, then you can think of muscle as the high-performance frame that keeps the whole vehicle stable and strong. And let's be really clear here. We're not talking about bodybuilding, not at all. We're talking about real-world functional strength. The ability to catch yourself if you trip, to carry your own groceries, to just get up from a chair without help. That is the independence that muscle gives you. And the data on this it's undeniable. A major study in the British Medical Journal found that adults with the weakest muscles had more than double the risk of dying compared to those with the strongest. It turns out that muscle mass is one of the most powerful predictors of how long you're going to live. And here's where it all clicks together and connects back to our first pillar. Muscle is the main place your body stores the glucose you get from food. So when you have a healthy amount of muscle, it just soaks up that sugar like a giant sponge, keeping your blood sugar stable and protecting you from all that metabolic damage we just talked about. Now, to keep this vital tissue as we get older, we actually need more protein than younger folks do, somewhere around 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. The problem? Most older adults don't get anywhere close to that amount, which pretty much guarantees they're going to lose this precious protective muscle. This brings us right into pillar number 3. So while hitting the gym and doing resistance training is great for building muscle, we also need to focus on something even more fundamental: just consistent daily movement. The doctor who inspired this whole explainer shared a great story about how getting a dog completely changed his outlook. He said that this small, consistent act of just walking the dog a few times a day had these absolutely massive benefits that even he, as a doctor, had totally underestimated. And, of course, the science completely backs this up. A simple walk, especially after a meal, does wonders. It helps your muscles soak up blood sugar, it gets you out in natural light, which helps fix your sleep cycle, and it literally calms your stress response. It's gotta be one of the most powerful and sustainable health tools we have. All right, moving up from the body to the mind, we have pillar number 2, brain health. And for a lot of people, let's be honest, the fear of losing your mind is even greater than the fear of your body declining. But here is some seriously empowering news. A huge study in The Lancet found that about 40% of dementia cases around the world are linked to risk factors we can actually change. Think about that. That means nearly half of all cases could potentially be prevented, or at least delayed. And one of the most direct ways you can protect your brain is, surprise, surprise, exercise. When you move, your brain releases this amazing protein called BDNF. The best way to think of it is like fertilizer for your brain cells. It not only protects the neurons you have, but it helps you grow new connections. It's incredible. Now, here's a connection that might totally surprise you. When you can't hear well, your brain just isn't getting as much stimulation, and you're also way more likely to pull back from social situations. This is why treating hearing loss isn't just about vanity, it's a powerful, direct way to protect your brain. And finally, we've arrived at pillar number 1. This is the big one. This is the factor that sits on top of everything else, because if this is out of whack, it will sabotage every single one of your other efforts. We're talking about stress and your nervous system. So your nervous system basically has 2 modes. It has a gas pedal for fight or flight, and it has a brake for rest and digest. The problem is, in our modern world, most of us have our foot slammed on the gas pedal 24/7, and we never give our bodies the signal to hit the brake, slow down, and actually repair. And I want to be super clear. Chronic stress is not just a feeling. It's not all in your head. It is a real physical process. It actually shortens the little protective caps on your chromosomes called telomeres. This literally makes your cells biologically older than your calendar age. It is speeding up the aging process. Okay, so we've covered the 5 big pillars. But before we wrap up, let's do a really quick fire round of some simple, almost mundane things that have a surprisingly massive impact on healthy aging. Okay, ready? Bad oral health creates inflammation all over your body. Poor vision leads to falls. You can actually train your balance just by standing on one leg when you brush your teeth. Polypharmacy, being on too many unnecessary meds, is a huge risk. And finally, having a sense of purpose keeps your brain fired up and engaged. See, these little details really add up. So, what's the big takeaway here? How do we take all of this information and actually put it into practice? Well, it all comes down to one core idea. This is it. This is the ultimate why. All of these pillars, metabolic health, muscle, movement, brain function, they're not about biohacking or being perfect. They are about buying you the freedom to live your life on your own terms for as long as you possibly can. Reaching 92 and still being able to go out dancing, that isn't winning some genetic lottery. It's the end result of small, consistent actions that add up over decades. It is never, ever too late to start shifting the odds in your favor. Your future self is going to thank you for every single step you take, starting right now.